All right, this is the Cow Guy Close, and I am Scott Shelty, otherwise known as the Cow Guy, and I want to talk about a segment of the fuel economy that doesn't really get the attention it should. Diesel fuel. We are very aware of the price of unleaded gas, and the purveyor of Gas Buddy has launched himself into mild stardom, but diesel rarely makes the conversation when it should dominate. Without diesel, our economy would be brought to its knees. Trucks, ships, trains, they all use it. And on the farm, 67% of our machines run on it. 90% of the trucks that haul farm goods run on it. Quite simply, diesel is the fuel of the global supply chain, period. And something really big caught my eye last week. It was the Surface Transportation Board held emergency meetings on the crisis on the railways. What's happening there is similar to what we've been seeing at the ports, only this has been going on for years. Last week, Pilot Travel Centers testified that Union Pacific ordered it to cut rail shipments by 50%. The primary material Pilot ships by rail? You guessed it, diesel exhaust fluid. We could already see empty storage shelves in the near future. Add to that diesel shortage and everything is bare. My next guest understands just how important this is. Please welcome to the show, Keith Fitz-Gerald. Thanks, Keith, for taking the time today. But like I said to you in the break, I'm trying not to get too excited about it, but it's such a large percentage of our economy. This is something that really should make the headlines, not WTI or what you're putting in your car.
Well, it should, and this is the problem. I'm not sure half the people inside the Beltway could spell diesel, let alone know how it's used, Scott. This is super critical. And wise investors, wise people, I'm not telling your audience anything they don't know because you're talking, let me just rip some statistics off here. 97% of long-haul 18-wheelers use diesel. 1/5 of our power plants use coal that's brought to people by rail and truck using diesel. 90% of the farm equipment uses diesel. 98% of the commercial fishing fleet. If you need to eat, you need medicine, you need education, you need to get your kids somewhere, material somewhere, it all comes back to diesel. Why they are not just jumping from the rooftops and waving the red flags is beyond me.
And I think the average tanker, the average price of a gallon today was like $5.37, I think I heard this morning on the radio. So you think about that and what it costs to get these things done, that's going to be adding to our problems here, and that's going to be the number one cause of inflation. I don't care how many times I have to say it, but if we had a coherent energy policy and we could take away that worry about energy prices and we had cheap, plentiful energy sources, we're going to take 60 to 70% of the inflation worries down. We don't even have to have that really be implemented right away. It's just going to be the expectation would help inflation get lower, don't you think?
Well, and that's the thing, because people making these policies ride in these limousines, they ride in cars that are fueled by gasoline, they don't operate farm tractors, they don't spend time on the ranches, they don't know how food gets from one place to the other. It's all provided to them. So I would dare anybody inside the Beltway in the administration to spend a few days on a ranch, try to make payroll when your costs are going through the roof, when you can't afford to turn your tractor on, and ludicrously, if you're trying to fuel up at a Pilot Center and you can't get the diesel fuel to move your stuff to market, how is that going to play out? The answer is an inconvenient interruption in their version of reality, not the world we all live in.
Well, that's exactly right. It's more than an inconvenience. So something that pop up yesterday, and I did it a little bit on the show yesterday about it, was they conveniently have this idea of they want to take you from one thing and move you to two others, right? So they want to take away the fossil fuel and move you over to wind and solar, okay? But now, part of this energy problem has been fertilizer. Now they want to take you away from fertilizer and move you over to compost and manure when it just can't take up the slack, just like solar and wind can't take up the slack. And so all they do when they do this, it's with them, it's always a revolution and not an evolution. Give me a reason why. Make a better case. Make the sale to me. No, they want to have the revolution and force us over when we can't have those things really pick up the slack, and the thing that we're meant to be leaving just gets more expensive in price anyway.
Well, that's, of course, the problem. They dictate to the rest of us when what should happen is the market should be allowed to select. And I get we've got to be better custodians of our planet. I mean, I understand that. But to a point you and I have made many, many times, this notion that you're suddenly going to dictate a future that the market isn't ready for, we don't have the capacity for, consumers can't do it. What are you going to do if you've got your diesel truck on the farm and they say you can't run it? Well, you know what? It doesn't matter what they say because there isn't an alternative right now. That's what they're not grasping. So wrecking the economy, the risk of a wipeout, those are all very, very real concerns in my mind. As an investor, I have got to pay attention to this.
And we're using more coal year over year. And if you look at some of these reports from these think tanks, they say fossil fuel is going to be with us definitely 50 more years, maybe 100, depending on how hard we try to wean ourselves off of it. And we've had some really smart guys that watch this show, Keith, have emailed us and sent me text saying, if you just do the math, it's almost impossible to move everybody over to wind and solar from fossil fuels because they're two totally different powers.
Well,
one is intermittent and the other one is there when you need it. Right, that's it.
Well, and this is the thing, it's there when you need it, number one. But number two, we have a storage problem. You can't store energy efficiently. Despite all the technological process we've made, despite the fact we've had tremendous advances in batteries, you just can't do it. But this is the statistic that really hits home for me. Some of the scientists I was talking to recently, there are over 30,000 specific industrial processes that depend on petroleum products. Even if we have think about this for a second, even if we have a perfectly fungible substitute today, it's going to take 30 to 40, even 50 years to change those processes. So bottom line is, we still need dinosaur juice, regardless of the political affirmations.
And I'll add to that, the cost has been estimated when it comes to learning how to make things really storable.
Yep.
$100 trillion.
Trillions.
$100 trillion.
Trillions.
100 trillion. So if we want to get underneath the government's mandate by 2035, I'm calling that 13 years from now. That's roughly $9 trillion a year we're going to have to spend to get to where we need to be. I mean, what does that do to inflation? I mean, when you really sit down and think about the application and the operation and the common sensibility of all these types of things, I think you'd be a little bit weary of yelling, wind and solar, compost and manure from the top of your lungs, because it's just not possible.
Well, but this is the problem. You and I apply common logic just like your viewers do. Nobody in the Beltway applies common logic. As a matter of fact, I think you've got to leave your brain outside the Beltway if you're going to go work on this stuff.
Right. That's the prerequisite to get in. I have no brain. All right. That's a great way to end it because I love it when you talk like that. That's great stuff. Thanks very much. That's Keith Fitz-Gerald coming to us from Seattle. Thanks a lot, Keith. Now, here's a look at some of those equity markets that are affected by some of these policies the government's putting down our throats here. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Dow. Let's see. That Dow is up 50. Boy, that's been all over the place. It was recently up a couple of hundred, so that's not really knowing where it wants to be either. Let's take a look at what's going on. Then if we take a look at the S&P, if I can get that pulled up, that's going to be nice and easy. There we go. S&P's up 20. That's really nothing considering where it has been. So these markets, I can still tell, are just acting a little bit nervous when they don't have a real true direction to go. Let's see what the Nasdaq's been doing. That's still quiet too. It's been really interesting to watch this one because it's been tanking so much, but it's really worried about those higher interest rates, and that's definitely something that we've been doing. How about the Russell 2000? This is the mid-level capitalized stocks. Yeah, that's up too, just like everything else. So nothing really to see here. Move along, as the police would say. But just to kind of give you an update going into the close, a lot of things have been changing between now and 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern too. So, all right. If you thought the labor shortage was bad, just wait. The job openings report came in much, much higher than expected, and we can't even fill these openings that we have. My next guest and I talk about the impact this will have on our markets and where we go from here when the Cow Guy Close returns.